Welcome back to the virtual hangar. Let's get ready for spring by making this super cute botanical tea towel. Your kit will include one white 100% cotton tea towel, one big sheet of parchment paper, and one river rock. But most of the things that you'll need from this project are actually going to come from right outside your door. So let's talk about what would make a good choice for this project. We're looking for flat petals and leaves that are relatively thin, that are vibrantly colored. Pick your flowers with lots of stems and leaves so you have more time to work before they wilt. And the more pigment that it has on the stem, the more that we can transfer to our cloth. These white daisies don't have any pigment to transfer, but these purple ones might be okay. We also want to avoid anything that's kind of tubular unless it has a clearly flat portion at the end that you can cut off. And even though succulents are probably going to be the thing you have the most access to here, anything this thick and waxy is just not going to transfer. One last note, if it looks sad already on the plant, us hitting it with a rock is not going to make it look any better, so you may as well just leave those. Stick with things that look healthy. Okay, I'm going to put down a piece of cardboard to protect my work surface. You don't want to work on a table, I think, because it's probably not good for your table to hammer it repeatedly, but a few layers of clean scratch paper would work even better before we start working with our flowers. As long as you made your cuttings with a bit of stem and leaves, even if this process takes a little while, you can put your flowers in a paper bag in the fridge while you work with them to get them ready. Anything thick like this obviously is not going to transfer, so we need to pull all the brightest petals off of the flower. There's a few you can see. Anything that has a thick center bit, you want to leave. You can see this hibiscus. I'm not pulling the middle, I'm just pulling the nicest petals. Anything bulky is just going to add a big pile of gunk to our project. Um, you can see on this one, I also am going to take the leaves and leave as much stem as possible. If there's part of your petal that you don't like, you can take your scissors and just cut them off. It's easier to do that at this point than it is to just like not hammer them later. So any part of the petal you're like, oh, that's kind of ugly, don't be worried about just cutting them off. Things like this purple one, again, I'm going to just take the petals and not the thick section. These purple ones as well, quite thick, but I can just take the little fine purple ones and try and isolate the actual pigmented petal as much as possible. These tube ones, I'm actually going to cut just at the end of the tube and place. This obviously was quite finicky, so I do those at the end. And these pink ones, I am actually going to do the same thing too as well. Don't be afraid to vary the sizes and colors. And then these mint leaves, I thought also made a nice accent. I love this project as a way to kind of commemorate what you grew in your garden this year, or to commemorate a special event. You can do this with a bouquet that you're given. My first one of these projects was after my anniversary from a sunflower patch, and now I have a nice keepsake. So once all our flowers and leaves are all prepped, I just kind of jumble them in my hand in the parchment paper and scatter them here and there all over the tea towel from kind of a height and let them fall kind of naturally. I kind of liked the random approach, but you could be more arranged about it if you wanted to be. I did sort of a hybrid of like scatter, but then I kind of cleaned it up. And then you can see I'm taking my scissors and just cutting these little tiny star ones right where I want to place them. Sometimes the things that have multiple petals, you're really going to need to do like that and place individually. They won't scatter as well, just like these blue ones as well. But I kind of thought the different shapes and the different colors, and some had multiple petals and some had just one big petal, really added to like the controlled randomness of the design. But of course, you could do like a more planned out, thoughtful placement of all of your petals if you like. It's totally up to you. So just about done here. Gonna just place one or two more of these and then let's start smacking. So over the corner where you're going to start, you can start in the middle, you can start in the corner, whatever is ergonomic for you. Whatever part you're working on, you just want to cover with the parchment paper completely and take your rock, and not too hard, believe it or not, kind of gently, just start pounding on it at one end of the petal to the other. You kind of want to go systematically. It's not just hammer away, even though it can be. Um, but you're trying to smush the actual fibers of the petal or plant into the fabric itself. So you don't want to hammer down and then pull. You want to just do a nice, decisive strike with your rock, starting at one end and then going down to the other end. You can get pretty detailed with these. Let's just check it. There we go. So you can kind of see it kind of just gooshes the meat of the flower petal into the fabric itself, and then the pigment of the petal will release. So I don't have a history lesson about this other than I know that this is an ancient technique that I certainly did not invent. But I thought it was really amazing how, if you are kind of systematic about it, you can really preserve the shape and pigment of the particular leaves, like even these kind of fern-esque ones. I was able to really still see a lot of the shapes of each of those individual kind of fingers of this leaf. Um, I will say you will get better results with a hammer, but I kind of wanted to preserve the historical sort of roots of this project, which probably historically would have been done with rocks. Um, and definitely, if you don't want to be systematic and you just want to, get your anger management in and hit away, get some of your rage out, that's totally fine too. Just be aware that if you're not hitting onto something soft like the cardboard, um, if you're on, ooh, that turned out quite lovely. If you're on like concrete, which is actually my first couple of times I tried to do this straight on the sidewalk, and you don't put anything between the towel and the sidewalk, and you hit too hard, it's pretty likely that you actually can tear holes in the fabric because you're also hitting the fabric, not just the flower. So keep that in mind. It's kind of a controlled strike. You don't want to be so gentle, obviously, that the flower doesn't transfer, but you don't want to be so strong that the towel itself rips. So once you finish a section, you can just kind of scoot over to the next. I just start at one end of this yellow one and kind of go to the other end. Um, the wider, flatter area of the rock, I think, came up with better results than like hitting it with a pointy part of the rock like you would with a ball peen hammer. But the only important thing about when you shift your parchment paper, you don't have to keep the whole thing. Obviously, it's not going to cover the towel and all of your flowers. So you can keep moving it around. Just be careful that you're not moving it and also moving the petals. And then you don't want to like do a purple section that is on the parchment paper. If you then hit a yellow leaf, that purple will transfer into the yellow petals. So that's all I have to say as far as technique on that goes. Go wild with it. Use your huge biceps. It's going to be awesome. Let's fast forward to after I've pounded this whole towel. Okay, so this is kind of how it looks. You'll see there's a lot of plant matter left here on the towel itself. So again, we've already been quite rough with the fiber. Gently rub back and forth with your finger. You want to get as much of that plant matter off because it will start to decompose and it'll be a little stinky. So the more we can get off, the better. I was really tempted to use my fingernail, but scraping it actually did kind of end up resulting in maybe one or two little holes. So if you don't want that, I took a paper towel or even over parchment paper while you're still outside. You do this kind of squishing thing between your fingers, like you're kind of rubbing your hands together, but with your fingers. And that will help a lot of it come off too. Um, as much as possible that you can get off, the less stinky your towel will be, certainly. But the thinner it is, the thinner you've smashed them, it does get really hard. So it's don't expect to get all of it. It will smell a little composty, and that's okay. It's part of the spring process, the spring journey. But if you can see it, you should try and get it off. If this is just too tedious for you, you can hang it outside for a few days to dry, as long as the weather's nice, but not in direct sunlight because that will actually have the pigment fade a little bit. Or you can throw it in your dryer, as long as you don't mind a little bit of that composty smell in the house. That will dry out the rest of the leftovers and kind of help push it off of the towel. From the wrong side of the towel, you want to heat set this color with an iron on whatever cotton setting, and that will continue to dry out some of the botanical, and you can kind of wrinkle it to get the rest off. And then iron it once from the side that you put the leaves on themselves. That will also help to make the colors a little bit more color fast, make them last a little bit longer. All right, that is our finished towel. I had a lot of fun with this one. I actually was so pleasantly surprised by how well mine turned out. I would love to see how yours turned out. Please reach out to us on social media with your pictures or if you need help, and I will see you next time.